this WNBA offseason killed a lot of dumbass narratives, right? It really did. And I hope they're gone for good. And I hope we spend so much less time discussing nonsense and, fan bases and all the things that came along with it and the made up garbage that was online and was sold as if it was a big part of the actual sport or the players' decisions. And don't get me wrong, it was elevated to a certain degree. I'm not going to ignore, the racial aspect got thrown into the media. Players addressed what fans were saying. So it was given life to a certain extent. But I think we've seen it stamped out this offseason. And one of those narratives was people wouldn't want to go to the Fever because of the Fever fan base. And the Fever fan base being painted with this broad brushstroke was always just stupid, really. There's no other word for it, because Caitlin Clark brought more fans to the league than it's ever seen. So many of them are Fever fans, and the new fans that come in outnumber the old fans that were already there. You don't want to tell those people they're unwelcome. And a lot of fans, I think, felt unwelcome as a result of that, because when you look at every sport and every fan base, there are going to be bad apples. With every group of people, there are. And the larger that group becomes, of course, then the larger the small percentage of bad apples are. But if you've ever followed sports, you see people acting stupid online or even live at games. Regardless, so many players decided they were going to go to the Indiana Fever in the offseason, which was the death knell for a lot of those narratives. They weren't traded. Cunningham was traded there, but Natasha Howard signed with the Indiana Fever. And I think more importantly, DeWanna Bonner signing with the Indiana Fever was representative of that. Sydney Colson as well, of course. But Bonner, because she is, in a relationship with Alyssa Thomas, and Alyssa Thomas had said what she said about fans after the playoff loss, it goes to show you that I think hopefully all that stuff has been put in the rear view. And of course, Bonner is a pro. And like I've said, there's so many pros to playing for the Indiana Fever. The pros being that you get more attention, you get more endorsements, you get a chance to win, you get fans on the road or away, or at home. All these things come to you when you're playing for the Fever. And DeWanna Bonner is later on in her career. She has that connection with Stephanie White, but she decided to enter the online fray. And the reason I'm sharing this is I don't want to go into like Twitter replies or X replies and make videos out of them a bunch, but I think it's going to make Fever fans feel good. I think it's going to make Fever fans feel good to see this, so that's why I'm sharing it. Bonner hopped onto X, formerly known as Twitter, and responded to someone called Alyssa Thomas's ponytail. You can go read the whole back and forth on your own if you want. But this Alyssa Thomas ponytail person says, I just got aggravated all over again. One day I'll get over it, but today isn't that day. And then DeWanna Bonner says, I'm almost sure this is her account. Are y'all cool? Because I'm tired folks sending me stuff that y'all keep saying. You want to talk about it? So people have informed her of what's being said online. Hopefully for her, she's not chronically online or paying attention to that nonsense. A few minutes later, I'm sure she got a huge influx of support from Fever fans, because most Fever fans are positive, very big fan base, all those things. She writes this message that I think is going to resonate with a lot of you out there. Simply, y'all, I don't get on here often because this app is insanely too much sometimes. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all the love I've received so far. Deaf, not unnoticed. The love is real. Thank you. So that seemed very heartfelt from DeWanna Bonner. And I think after what happened last season, Fever fans are probably starving for that. And I think seeing the validation of the players choosing their team helps a lot. It already helped. Knowing that they get to root for Caitlin Clark helps. But seeing Kelsey Mitchell come back and that welcome, like she's being celebrated. And we celebrated her too, right? Like that's how they felt. We celebrated her. People tried to tell us we didn't, but we did. And Aaliyah Boston and the All-Star votes and Lexi Hull getting the endorsements that she's got. And that was the existing core. And then you bring in the new look Fever, Natasha Howard, a veteran, a winner, says, I choose to go here, play with Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Leah Boston. And that says something. And then DeWanna Bonner says, yeah, champion, right? Veteran. I choose to go there, despite what was out there, despite the fact that I played for the Connecticut Sun. And that was as heated as it may get. Dejanay Carrington was on her team tweeting up a storm after every game. And even Alyssa Thomas said what she said. But clearly, they talked about it, didn't talk about it, was unsaid, fine with it. Alyssa Thomas goes to the Mercury, where she is surely going to thrive, and DeWanna Bonner goes to the Fever. Then Sydney Colson, who was on the Aces, and so many of the Aces fans were always, kind of, and Colson chooses the Indiana Fever. It really does. I do think the BS is behind us, which is just great. That's great for all of those fan bases I just mentioned, right? Like, it should be great. I mean, I know the Aces fans have had a tough time, but it should be great for any fan of the game, any fan of the sport, any fan of the WNBA actually growing. Because anybody who was focusing so much of their energy on that, come on. Like, you don't actually love the sport. You weren't actually talking about the game or the players. That wasn't your concern. I mean, most of the time, I think it was purposeful to stir up more drama. And then, the carnival barkers, like I said, used it because they were never talking about women's basketball in the first place. It was just Caitlin Clark was a convenient way for them to spout this other nonsense. But now it's about basketball. And there's, no argument that the Fever are a great basketball destination, that Caitlin Clark is a great basketball player, that they have a great fan base. I guess that's ultimately what you're going to see, right? Because so many of those Fever fans, I've seen them. They're the ones watching Unrivaled. They're the ones watching women's college basketball. Others too, of course. But let that thank you from DeWanna Bonner be an olive branch to us all to focus on the basketball. But I did think it was worth sharing simply because I know a lot of those fans, the new fans, felt rejected and beaten down a lot. And I think this is symbolic in a sense that, that's going to be very, very, those voices are going to wane. You can barely hear them. Where are they going? Off into the distance, in the Fever or the future.